Hey there, it's Samaniego, your go-to person for IRS tax resolution. Today, I wanted to talk to you about something that could save you a lot of money and headaches. Incorrect tax assessments by the California Franchise Tax Board, or better known as the FTB. Just because you get a bill from the Franchise Tax Board, it doesn't mean it's actually correct. Mistakes happen more often than you think, and before you panic and pay a cent or you can hire a tax professional just to confirm the assessment is correct. And don't let that error cost you more money than you can possibly afford to pay. Again, as I mentioned, my name is Samaniego with a tax debt consultant. I almost couldn't pronounce my own name. And today we're talking about don't pay that tax bill until you watch this video. And the reason I wanted to do this video is just the California Franchise Tax Board. For those of you guys that don't know who they are, they're basically the tax collection agency for California. They basically primarily collect past due income taxes, and they also collect taxes for other entities within California. So if you owe money for sales taxes, they're the ones that do the collection. If you owe money, but believe it or not, for car registration, they are the ones that actually collect. So if you happen to get that bill, get a notice in the mail, or your bank account was actually levied and it says the FTB, that's the California Franchise Tax Board that did that. In fact, I'll show you really quick here, just to give you an example. A lot of people are always saying, oh, let me get this up here, right here. Want to show you, that's not what I wanted to show you yet. Anyways, State of California Franchise Tax Board, and we're going to come back to that notice. So again, the reason I'm bringing this up is that we actually had a client that reached out to us because I have the notice right here. I'm reading. He had a bill for $45,608, and they said that the bill was actually for the 2019 and the 2020 tax year. And actually, here's the notice, and you'll see this. If you can read that, it's $45,608. That's what the tax bill was. And as I scroll down here, and I'll take a look here, down there, it specifically says for the 2019 tax year, the bill was $23,535. And the thing that you'll notice here, this actual bill started at $13,000. By the time they added penalties and interest, it jumped up to $23,000. And then the second part of this bill was 2020. The original bill was $13,000, but with penalties and interest, this bill jumped up to $22,073. So that's a combined bill of $45,608. He called me up and he's all, Carlos, I don't understand why I got this bill. And here's what the interesting part about him. He thought he had to pay it. And they were getting ready to do a bank levy. Basically, a levy is when they physically take money out of your bank account. I told him if he didn't know what it wasn't sure what it was, he didn't believe he owed the money. I told him, here's what we got to do. Let me get to work on this. I deal with these every day, literally almost on a daily basis. I deal with the State of California Franchise Tax Board. So he actually retained me. What I immediately did is I called the Franchise Tax Board, and you'll notice here on the notice, the minute I called them, I got a 90-day hold on collections. So we were able to stop the bank levy that was getting ready to show up, take money out of his bank account. So we ended up getting that 90-day hold. So now I started doing research, and I found out that it's always funny when we get these. He did not file a tax return. So the 19 and 20, he didn't file his tax returns. And I said, where did you live? He goes, I own a home in California. So that's not really good news. But I actually worked and lived on the East Coast. And I said, what was happening with the home in California? He's all, Carlos, it was just a second home. I came there for vacation, but for 2 years, I was living on the East Coast. And I said, interesting. I said, let me do some research. We ended up getting his documentation, and the documents stated that he literally worked, had W-2s from this East Coast, and I'm just going to say an East Coast state. And all we had to do was pretty simple. I ended up filing tax returns for him for those years. Our office took care of the returns. I was able to reach back out to the state of California, let them know exactly what was going on. And guess what? State of California said, you're correct. He doesn't owe us any money. So they're actually in the process of completely wiping out this $45,000 tax bill that you see here. So luckily for him, he did something that a lot of people don't do. They just assume that the notice they get from the franchise tax board or the IRS is correct and that they owe the money. And they start paying, they let the levies go. So this was a perfect example of why don't pay the FTB, heck, don't pay the IRS until you have somebody actually review the notices and confirm that you actually owe the money. In a previous video, I talked about I had somebody that never lived in the U.S., never lived in the U.S., and the state of California sent them a huge tax bill. And in that case, they actually levied over $20,000 out of his bank account, only for me to do my research and find out he owed $0 and didn't even have a tax filing requirement to the state of California. But the state of California took $25,000 out of his bank account, had over a $50,000 tax bill. So if you want to make sure you get the help that you need, my name's Carlos Samaniego. If you get this letter from the Franchise Tax Board, call us. We'll talk to you. There's no cost for our initial consultation whatsoever. I'll take a look at what you got and explain what you have and maybe even give you the game plan on getting it resolved. You can call us at 909-570-1103. If you haven't gotten my book, my free book, taxdebtbook.com, How to Make the IRS an Offer They Can't Refuse, you can always pick up that book if you haven't gotten that book. And then again, you know what? If you need to talk to somebody immediately and just want to book an appointment and say, hey, Carlos, I need help with the Franchise Tax Board, you can book your own appointment. Go to my calendar, call taxea.com. Either myself or someone on my team will actually be talking to you, and we will walk you through the process of getting this resolved. So again, I hope this helps. Don't pay that, don't pay that franchise tax bill until you watch the entire video. Bye-bye for now.